The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the mansion as Eleanor Blackwood's prized Ming Dynasty vase, a family heirloom worth more than most people's annual salary, lay in pieces on the marble floor. Maria, the housekeeper who had served the family for 15 years, stood frozen in horror, her weathered hands trembling. But what happened next would change the Blackwood family forever, revealing that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the smallest voice in the room. "You're fired. Pack your things and get out of my house immediately," Eleanor hissed, her voice cold as ice as she pointed toward the door, not even giving Maria a chance to explain. What Eleanor didn't realize was that her 10-year-old daughter Lily was watching from the shadows of the hallway, tears streaming down her face. And the words that would soon leave the child's lips would force Eleanor to confront the person she had become. Maria had been more than just a maid to the Blackwood family. When Eleanor's husband died 3 years ago, leaving her a young widow with a 7-year-old daughter, Maria had been their rock. She prepared meals when Eleanor was too grief-stricken to get out of bed. She read bedtime stories to Lily when her mother was working late at the investment firm she now ran alone. She remembered birthdays when Eleanor forgot, and she kept the household running when everything else seemed to be falling apart. But success had changed Eleanor. As her company flourished, she became increasingly demanding and impatient. The warm, loving mother who once baked cookies with her daughter on Sunday afternoons had been replaced by a cold perfectionist who scheduled 15-minute, quality time slots with Lily between business calls. The transformation had been so gradual that Eleanor hadn't even noticed it happening. "But Mrs. Blackwood, please," Maria pleaded, her accent thickening with emotion. "It was an accident. I was dusting Anne." "I don't care what you were doing," Eleanor cut her off sharply. "That vase was priceless. It's been in my husband's family for generations, and now it's destroyed because of your carelessness." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I have worked for you for 15 years. I helped raise Lily. I was here when Mr. Blackwood passed. Don't you dare bring up my husband," Eleanor snapped, her voice rising. "Just go. Your final check will be mailed to you." What Eleanor didn't know was that Maria had been diagnosed with arthritis 6 months ago. The pain in her joints had been getting worse, making her hands less steady. She had been saving money for treatment, afraid to tell Eleanor about her condition for fear of losing her job. Now her worst fear had come true anyway. As Maria turned to leave, a small voice came from the doorway. "Mom, stop." Eleanor whirled around to see Lily standing there, her small face streaked with tears but her expression resolute. The child stepped forward, placing herself between her mother and Maria. "Lily, go to your room. This doesn't concern you," Eleanor said firmly. But Lily didn't move. Instead, she looked her mother straight in the eyes and said 7 words that would haunt Eleanor for weeks to come: "This isn't what Dad would have wanted." The silence that followed was deafening. Eleanor felt as if she'd been slapped. Her daughter's words cut through her anger like a knife, leaving her breathless. For a moment, she saw herself through Lily's eyes, and she didn't recognize the woman she had become. But pride is a powerful force. "Go to your room now, Lily," Eleanor repeated, her voice shaking slightly. "Maria is leaving, and that's final." Lily didn't argue further. She simply turned to Maria, wrapped her arms around the woman's waist, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Maria. I love you." Then she ran upstairs, the sound of her sobs echoing through the large, empty house. Maria left quietly, taking only her purse. She didn't have the heart to pack her things with Lily so upset. She would come back another time, she decided, when Eleanor wasn't home. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. Her daughter's words kept replaying in her mind: "This isn't what Dad would have wanted." Was that true? Had she changed so much that her late husband wouldn't recognize her? The thought was unbearable. She got up and wandered through the silent house, eventually finding herself in front of the family photo wall. Pictures of happier times stared back at her: her wedding day, Lily's birth, family vacations. In every photo, Eleanor was smiling, genuinely happy. When had that woman disappeared? Her eyes fell on a particular photo, a candid shot taken at Lily's 7th birthday party, just a month before her husband's accident. In it, Eleanor was laughing as Maria helped Lily blow out her candles. They looked like a family. They had been a family. The next morning, Eleanor woke up with a plan. She called her assistant and cleared her schedule for the day, something she hadn't done in years. Then she went to Lily's room, only to find the bed empty and neatly made. Panic surged through her until she heard voices from the kitchen. Following the sound, Eleanor found Lily sitting at the kitchen counter, attempting to make pancakes. The kitchen was a disaster, flour everywhere, eggshells on the floor, and a bowl of lumpy batter that looked nothing like pancake mix. "Lily, what are you doing?" Eleanor asked, more confused than angry. Lily looked up, her expression serious beyond her years. "Maria always makes pancakes on Saturdays. I thought I could do it instead." Eleanor felt something break inside her. She walked over and sat beside her daughter, taking in the mess and the effort behind it. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, pulling Lily into a hug. "I'm so sorry." For the first time in years, Eleanor truly looked at her daughter, not as an appointment in her schedule, but as the precious gift her husband had left her. Lily's eyes, so like her father's, were filled with a mixture of hope and wariness that broke Eleanor's heart. "I've been a terrible mother, haven't I?" Eleanor asked softly. Lily shook her head. "Not terrible. Just, not here. Even when you're home, you're not really here." The truth of those words hit Eleanor hard. She had been physically present but emotionally absent for years, burying herself in work to avoid dealing with her grief. And in the process, she had pushed away the two people who mattered most, her daughter and Maria, who had become family. "I think we need to fix this," Eleanor said, making a decision. "Let's clean up this kitchen, and then we have somewhere to go." An hour later, they were standing on the doorstep of a modest apartment building across town. Eleanor had never visited Maria's home before, and the realization made her ashamed. 15 years of service, and she had never once thought to see where the woman lived. When Maria opened the door, her surprise was evident. She was still in her bathrobe, her hair uncombed, and her eyes red from crying. "Mrs. Blackwood? Lily? May we come in?" Eleanor asked, her voice uncharacteristically humble. Maria hesitated but stepped aside. Her apartment was small but immaculately clean and filled with photos, many of them of Lily growing up. Eleanor realized with a pang that Maria had documented moments of her daughter's life that she herself had missed. "I came to apologize," Eleanor said, the words feeling foreign on her tongue. When was the last time she had admitted she was wrong? "I was unfair yesterday. More than unfair, I was cruel." Maria said nothing, waiting. "The vase was just a thing," Eleanor continued. "Things can be replaced. But people, good people like you, they're irreplaceable." She took a deep breath. "I'd like to ask you to come back, but not as our maid. As our family manager, with a significant raise and health insurance that will cover the arthritis treatment you need." Maria's eyes widened. "How did you know about my arthritis?" "I didn't," Eleanor admitted. "But I noticed your hands shaking yesterday, and I should have asked if you were okay instead of jumping to conclusions. I've been a terrible employer and an even worse friend." Maria looked at Lily, who was watching the exchange with hopeful eyes. "And what does Miss Lily think about this?" Lily stepped forward and took Maria's hand. "I think we need you, Maria. Mom needs you. I need you. Please come home." Maria's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were tears of relief. "I would like that very much." On the drive back to the Blackwood mansion, Eleanor made another decision. "Lily, how would you feel about me cutting back my hours at work? Maybe we could have dinner together every night, like we used to when Dad was alive." Lily's face lit up with a smile so bright it made Eleanor's heart ache. "Really? You promise?" "I promise," Eleanor said, and for the first time in years, she meant it. The following weeks weren't easy. Old habits die hard, and Eleanor caught herself slipping back into workaholic tendencies more than once. But each time, she remembered her daughter's words, "This isn't what Dad would have wanted," and found the strength to close her laptop and be present. Maria returned to the Blackwood home, not as a servant but as part of the family. Her new role came with respect, better pay, and the freedom to speak her mind. And speak it she did, especially when she saw Eleanor working too late or missing one of Lily's school events. 6 months later, Eleanor stood in the doorway of the living room, watching Maria and Lily baking cookies together. The house smelled of vanilla and cinnamon, and laughter filled the air. Eleanor had just turned down a major promotion at work, one that would have required extensive travel, and strangely, she felt no regret. "Are you going to stand there all day, or are you going to help us?" Maria called out, noticing her. Eleanor smiled and joined them, rolling up her sleeves. As she measured flour and cracked eggs, she thought about the broken vase that had changed everything. Sometimes, things needed to break for healing to begin. That night, after Lily was asleep, Eleanor found herself looking at old videos of her husband. In one, he was playing with 2-year-old Lily in the backyard, his laughter infectious as he swung her around in circles. "I'm trying to do better, James," Eleanor whispered to the screen. "I lost my way for a while, but I'm finding it again. I think you'd be proud." As if in answer, Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Mom? Are you okay?" Eleanor smiled and patted the spot beside her. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. Come watch some videos of your dad with me." As they sat together, watching memories play across the screen, Eleanor realized that the most valuable things in life weren't possessions that could break. They were the connections we forge, the love we share, and the moments we create together. But Eleanor's journey of redemption was just beginning. The next morning, she received a call that would test her newfound priorities. Her biggest client was threatening to pull their account unless she personally flew to Tokyo for an emergency meeting. The old Eleanor wouldn't have hesitated, she would have been on the next flight out. But now, she found herself torn. Lily had a piano recital that weekend, her first solo performance. She had been practicing for months, and her eyes lit up whenever she talked about it. "Mom, you'll be in the front row, right?" she had asked just that morning, her voice filled with excitement and a hint of uncertainty. Eleanor sat at her desk, staring at her phone. The client was worth millions to her company. Missing this meeting could mean losing not just the account, but possibly her position as CEO. She had worked so hard to build her career, to prove herself in a male-dominated industry. Could she really risk it all? As she debated, her eyes fell on a new photo on her desk, one taken just last week. It showed Eleanor, Lily, and Maria at the park, all three laughing as they fed ducks by the pond. They looked happy. They were happy. With sudden clarity, Eleanor made her decision. She called her second-in-command, Thomas, who had been with the company almost as long as she had. "Thomas, I need you to go to Tokyo," she said firmly. "But Eleanor, Nakamura specifically asked for you," Thomas protested. "I know. And you're going to tell him that I trust you completely to handle this situation, which is why I'm sending you instead of coming myself. You know this account as well as I do, possibly better. And Thomas? When you get back, we need to talk about your promotion to co-CEO." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I've been thinking about restructuring the company for a while now. This seems like the perfect opportunity to start." After hanging up, Eleanor felt a strange mixture of anxiety and relief. She had just made a decision that the old Eleanor would have considered career suicide. Yet somehow, it felt right. When she told Maria about her decision later that day, the older woman nodded approvingly. "You know, Mrs. Blackwood." "Eleanor," she corrected gently. "After all this time, I think you can call me Eleanor." Maria smiled. "Eleanor, then. I was going to say, you remind me of your husband now. He always knew what mattered most." The comparison brought unexpected tears to Eleanor's eyes. "Thank you, Maria. That means more than you know." The day of Lily's recital arrived, and Eleanor sat in the front row as promised, with Maria beside her. When Lily walked onto the stage, looking both nervous and determined in her new dress, Eleanor felt a surge of pride so intense it took her breath away. Lily's performance wasn't perfect. She stumbled over a few notes in the middle section, but when she finished, her face searched the audience until she found her mother. The smile they shared in that moment was worth more than any business deal Eleanor had ever closed. After the recital, as they were celebrating with ice cream, Eleanor's phone rang. It was Thomas, calling from Tokyo. "How did it go?" she asked, stepping away from the table. "We kept the account," Thomas said, sounding exhausted but pleased. "And Nakamura actually said he respected your decision to prioritize family. Apparently, his own workaholic tendencies cost him his marriage last year. He said, and I quote, 'A CEO who understands balance is a CEO who will make sustainable decisions.'" Eleanor laughed in disbelief. "So my potentially career-ending move actually impressed him?" "It seems that way." "Oh, and about that co-CEO position?" "I'd be honored." As Eleanor returned to the table, Lily looked up anxiously. "Is everything okay, Mom? Do you have to go to work?" Eleanor shook her head, smiling. "Everything is perfect, sweetheart. And the only place I have to be is right here with you." That night, as Eleanor tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked a question that caught her off guard. "Mom, do you think Dad can see us from heaven?" Eleanor sat on the edge of the bed, considering her answer carefully. "I'd like to think so, yes." "Why do you ask?" Lily fiddled with her blanket. "Because I want him to know that we're okay now. That we're a family again, with Maria. And that you're happy." Eleanor felt her heart swell with love for this perceptive, compassionate child. "I think he knows, sweetheart. And I think he's very proud of you." "Of both of us," Lily corrected, yawning. "Yes," Eleanor agreed softly. "Of both of us." As the months passed, Eleanor continued to reshape both her life and her company. She implemented flexible working hours for all employees with families, created an on-site daycare facility, and established a mentorship program for women in business. Her company didn't suffer as she had feared. Instead, employee satisfaction increased, and with it, productivity. The Blackwood home changed too. What had once been a showcase, beautiful but cold, like a museum, became a true home. Fingerprints sometimes smudged the windows, toys occasionally cluttered the living room, and the kitchen was often messy from Lily and Maria's cooking adventures. Eleanor found she preferred it this way. One evening, almost a year after the vase incident, Eleanor came home to find Maria teaching Lily how to make empanadas, a recipe from Maria's grandmother. Flour dusted both their faces, and they were laughing as they filled the dough with a savory mixture. "Room for one more?" Eleanor asked, setting down her briefcase and rolling up her sleeves without waiting for an answer. "Always," Maria said warmly, handing her an apron. As they worked together, Lily suddenly asked, "Mom, do you ever miss that vase? The one that broke?" Eleanor paused, thinking about how that moment of destruction had actually been the beginning of something beautiful. "No, sweetheart, I don't. In fact, I think breaking that vase might have been the best thing that ever happened to us." "Because it helped you remember what's important?" Lily asked, wise beyond her years. "Exactly," Eleanor nodded, amazed once again by her daughter's insight. Later that week, Eleanor received a package at her office. Inside was a small, handcrafted ceramic vase. It wasn't valuable like the Ming Dynasty piece that had shattered, but it was beautiful in its own way, painted with delicate wildflowers and signed at the bottom, with love, Lily and Maria. A note accompanied it, to replace what was broken. Not as expensive, but made with love. Your new family. Eleanor placed the vase carefully on her desk, where clients could see it. When they asked about the clearly homemade piece sitting among her expensive office decor, she told them it was her most valuable possession. And she meant it. 1 year to the day after the vase-breaking incident, Eleanor hosted a dinner party, not for clients or business associates, but for the people who mattered most. Maria's family was there, along with Lily's teachers and the friends Eleanor had neglected during her workaholic years. During the dinner, Eleanor stood to make a toast. A year ago, I thought losing a family heirloom was the worst thing that could happen. I was wrong. The worst thing was losing sight of what family really means. She raised her glass. To Maria, who never gave up on us even when I gave her every reason to. To Lily, whose wisdom far exceeds her years. And to second chances, which we all deserve. Later that evening, as the guests were leaving, Lily tugged on her mother's hand. Mom, remember when you fired Maria and I said that thing about Dad? Eleanor nodded, the memory still painful but no longer raw. I do. Well, I have something else to say now, Lily continued, her young face solemn. I think Dad would be really proud of you. Eleanor felt tears spring to her eyes as she pulled her daughter close. Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me. The changes in Eleanor's life continued to ripple outward, affecting others in ways she never expected. Thomas, her new co-CEO, implemented similar family-friendly policies in their international offices. Several of her female executives, who had been considering leaving to start families, decided to stay, knowing they could now balance career and motherhood. But perhaps the most surprising change came 6 months later, when Eleanor received a call from her former client, Mr. Nakamura. Mrs. Blackwood, he said formally, I am calling to request your consultation on a personal matter. Intrigued, Eleanor agreed to meet him during his next visit to the States. When he arrived at her office, she was shocked by his appearance. The once imposing businessman looked tired and much older than his 55 years. My daughter is not speaking to me, he confessed after they had exchanged pleasantries. She says I was never there for her growing up, that I missed everything important. She's getting married next month and, she doesn't want me to walk her down the aisle. Eleanor felt a surge of empathy for this man who had once been just another business connection. And you're asking me for advice because you chose differently, he said simply. You chose your daughter over our deal. I need to know how to make things right with mine. Eleanor thought carefully before responding. I can't give you a quick fix, Mr. Nakamura. Trust takes time to rebuild once it's broken. But I can tell you that sincerity matters. Actions matter more than words. And it's never too late to start being the parent your child needs. She shared her own story with him, not the polished version she might have once offered a business associate, but the raw, honest truth about how close she had come to losing what mattered most. When Mr. Nakamura left her office, he bowed deeply. Thank you for your wisdom, Mrs. Blackwood. I have much work to do. 6 weeks later, a wedding invitation arrived, along with a note, she's giving me a chance. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Eleanor smiled as she pinned the invitation to her bulletin board. Her own journey had inspired another's, just as Lily's simple words had once inspired hers. That evening, as Eleanor helped Lily with her homework, her daughter asked an unexpected question. Mom, do you think people can really change? Eleanor considered the question seriously. I do, sweetheart. But I think they have to want to change. And sometimes they need help seeing why change is necessary. Lily nodded thoughtfully. Like how I helped you see that you needed to be nicer to Maria? Eleanor laughed softly. Exactly like that. You were very brave that day, standing up to me. Not many children would have had that courage. I was scared, Lily admitted. But Dad always said we should stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. He did say that, Eleanor agreed, her heart full of love for both her daughter and the memory of her husband. And he was right. As the seasons changed, so did the Blackwood household. Maria's arthritis improved with proper treatment, though she still had difficult days. On those days, it was Eleanor who insisted she rest while she and Lily handled the household chores, often with comically imperfect results that left all three of them laughing. Eleanor's company continued to thrive under the shared leadership model she had established with Thomas. They were featured in a business magazine as pioneers of the new corporate culture, one that valued employees as whole people with lives outside the office. But the most profound change was in Eleanor herself. The sharp-edged, perfectionistic woman who had once fired a loyal employee over a broken vase was gone. In her place was someone softer, more patient, more willing to see the beauty in imperfection. One Saturday morning, as Eleanor was helping Lily plant flowers in their garden, something the old Eleanor would never have had time for, her daughter made an observation that stopped her in her tracks. "You laugh a lot more now, Mom. Like you did when Dad was alive." Eleanor paused, trowel in hand, soil smudged across her cheek. "Do I?" Lily nodded emphatically. "Maria says your eyes have light in them again." That evening, Eleanor found Maria folding laundry in the family room. "Lily told me something interesting today," she said, sitting down beside the older woman. "She said you told her my eyes have light in them again." Maria looked embarrassed. "Children repeat everything, don't they? Was it true? What you said?" Maria set down the shirt she was folding and looked directly at Eleanor. "Yes. When I first came to work for you and Mr. Blackwood, you were full of life. After he died, that light went out. I watched you retreat into work, into perfectionism. I worried you would never find your way back." She smiled gently. "But you did." Eleanor reached out and squeezed Maria's hand. "Thanks to you and Lily. You never gave up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." "That's what family does," Maria said simply. "We don't give up on each other." 2 years after the day Maria had accidentally broken the vase, Eleanor found herself standing in front of her husband's grave. She hadn't visited as often as she should have, especially in those first dark years after his death when grief and work consumed her. "I wish you could see her, James," she said softly. "Lily is so much like you, kind, brave, wise beyond her years. She saved me from myself, you know. Her and Maria." She placed fresh flowers in the vase attached to the headstone. "I think you would approve of the changes we've made. We're a family again, just a different kind than we planned." As she turned to leave, she noticed an elderly man a few graves away, also placing flowers. Something about his stooped shoulders and the careful way he arranged his bouquet touched her heart. "Were you married long?" she asked gently as she approached. The man looked up, surprised by the question. 62 years, he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Not nearly long enough." "I'm sorry for your loss," Eleanor said sincerely. "Thank you." He gestured to James's grave. "Your husband?" Eleanor nodded. "He died suddenly. An accident. We only had 8 years together." The old man's eyes filled with compassion. "That's much too short a time." "It was," Eleanor agreed. "But I'm learning that it's not about the quantity of time we have, but what we do with it." The man smiled sadly. A wise perspective for someone so young. "Not my wisdom," Eleanor admitted. "My daughter's. She's teaching me how to live again." As they parted ways, Eleanor felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. James was gone, but his legacy lived on in Lily, in the lessons he had taught them both, in the love that had shaped their family. When she arrived home, she found Lily and Maria in the kitchen, preparing a surprise dinner for her. The table was set with their best dishes, candles were lit, and Lily was wearing her fancy dress, a slightly too large hand-me-down from a cousin that she adored. "What's the occasion?" Eleanor asked, touched by their effort. "We're celebrating," Lily announced proudly. "Celebrating what?" "Us," Maria said simply. "Our family. 2 years since we became what we are now." Eleanor looked at them both, this child who had saved her with 7 simple words and this woman who had loved them both through their darkest times, and felt overwhelming gratitude. "That is definitely worth celebrating," she agreed, her voice thick with emotion. As they sat down to dinner, Eleanor realized that the broken vase had been a turning point in all their lives. What had seemed like a disaster had actually been the beginning of healing, of growth, of a new kind of family forged from loss and redeemed by love. Sometimes, the most valuable things in life need to break before we can truly appreciate their worth. And sometimes, the most profound wisdom comes from the most unexpected sources, like a child brave enough to speak truth to power, to say the words that needed to be said, "This isn't what Dad would have wanted." Those 7 words had changed everything. They had brought Eleanor back to herself, back to what mattered. They had transformed 3 broken people into a family. They had reminded her that legacy isn't about possessions or achievements, but about the love we share and the lives we touch. As Eleanor looked around the table at the faces of those she loved, she silently thanked her daughter for having the courage to speak those words, and herself for having the wisdom to listen. If you found this story touching, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more heartwarming tales that remind us of the power of family, forgiveness, and finding our way back to what truly matters in life.